I missed you all last week. I was at the conference for the International New Thought Alliance in Phoenix, and then I was at the Panorama of Truth of the United Foundation for Better Living in San Antonio, which is the group that broke away from Unity in 1970, led by Johnny Coleman. How many of you have ever heard of Johnny Coleman?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was Oprah's minister for many years. And her church on the south side of Chicago is now being led by Derek Wells. He was there. And such a powerful, powerful consciousness. And I've never heard so much Fillmore and Emily Cady and Unity Principle quoted in one conference in my life. And I was born and raised in Unity. And what a fantastic group. I had a great experience there. But one of the things I did during that time, and also in between in a 4-day retreat I took in Bisbee, Arizona, was I went into a deep meditative state for quite a while, meditating on the 23rd Psalm, the Shepherd's Psalm. Now, when I go on retreats, I like to take a thought, I like to take an idea and work with it and then break it open and let the goodness come out. When you realize that this was originally a hymn, that's what song means, hymn or song, and it was sung, it was memorized by people. They didn't read most of them, so they would sing these songs and memorize them from childhood, and for hundreds and hundreds of years people sang these psalms, and then they lost the melodies. And we've recited them, we prayed them, but there's a thought form that has been built up over a period of 3,000 years or so. And people have probably recited or prayed or sung the 23rd Psalm a trillion times. Think of the energy, people who are desperate, people in need, people who are trying to experience something in their lives, trying to break free of some old state of consciousness. If you're stuck in your life, you need to get a hold of a thought that will move you out of the present state of consciousness into a new one. And what better way to do it than to tap into something that's established? Whether it's the 23rd Psalm, whether it's the Lord's Prayer. You know, the earliest, and I've shared this before, the earliest prayer that we know that was written down is the Gayatri Mantra from India. It's 6,000 years old according to the people in India, or 3,000 years old according, or 4,000 years old according to many Western scholars. The earliest known prayer, but it and the 23rd Psalm, which is about 3,000 years old, and the Lord's Prayer, which is about 2,000 years old, all have something in common. They are a string of affirmative prayer statements, a string of pearls of great price that we can use to move us up into a higher level of consciousness. And they are established in consciousness. And I've shared before the Gayatri Mantra, the oldest one, almost line by line fits our opening statement, I am now in the presence of pure being. But the 23rd Psalm also starts with an almost identical statement. And you say, well, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd. How does that relate with I am now in the presence of pure being? Well, let's take that first word, Lord. You know, they didn't start with the in Hebrew, it just said Lord. And what is that Lord? It's actually a euphemism. They plug it in. It's not what was in the original scriptures. But because it was considered blasphemy to utter the name of God, and because this was the name of God, this Lord, in its original Hebrew, they say, oh Lord, instead, Adonai. But even in Orthodox Judaism, you can't even say Adonai unless you're praying, because that would be blasphemy. So they just say Lord. And that's how it came into our understanding. But this Lord is really understood not as we think of Lord and Lady of the Manor, or some man on a throne, or some rulership. Lord literally meant, Adonai meant a higher authority, higher power, if you're in a 12-step group. Higher power. A higher authority, whether it's a set of laws, or an ideal, or a person, a king, or a ruler, or a judge. Lord, it's a higher reality, higher authority. So what is this higher authority? Well, the original, the one that you're not supposed to say, we translate as Jehovah or Yahweh. YHWH is how we transliterate the Hebrew. But that word, which is not supposed to be uttered, found its origins in the burning bush with Moses. You see, Moses was minding his own business. It was at night, most definitely, because he thought there was a bush that was burning. Well, you say, well, what's the significance of a burning bush? They didn't have incandescent lights like we do. And the only way that light could shine at night, except for the moon and the stars, was through fire. So he looked over and there's this light. Of course he thought the bush was on fire. It's light. Light is talking. God is light. And this light that spoke, when he asked, who shall I say was talking to me? When I go back to my people and tell them what we're going to do, said, I am that I am. Tell them I am sent you. I am that I am. This name of God, Lord, Adonai, Yahweh, Jehovah, I am that I am, was not a noun. It was a verb. It was the activity of being actively unfolding. It was the verb in Hebrew to be. So if you had this revelation and this burning bush is talking to you, and you said, what's your name? And it says, I am the verb to be. I am beingness, actively being. That's exactly what happened. You say, well, being is a verb. I want a God that I can hold on to. I want a God that's a noun. I want a God that has some kind of identity or something. You feel a little like Mary Magdalene when she went to the tomb. And she wanted a body. She was going to take care of the body of Jesus in the tomb after the crucifixion. She wanted the body and it was gone. And there was this man, she thought the gardener, standing nearby, and she said, what'd you do with the body? They've taken away my Lord and I don't know where they put him. And of course she was talking to Jesus, didn't even recognize him. She was looking for a form, something that was a limited structure. She thought it was a limited dead structure, but it was alive before her and was actively being. And that is moving our concept of God. And it's fine to think of God as a God, a being. It's okay. But there's something more than that. The I am that I am, which is the unfoldment of God in the universe actively being. And that verb, that action verb, constantly unfolding in the universe, is in you and me and is not separate from us. And it is identical to what we say at the beginning. I am now in the presence of that pure being. Being, I am that I am, is my shepherd. Shepherd. Have you ever been, or are you now, in a situation where you just want to be taken care of? You'd like to be a sheep for a little while. You know, the whole 23rd Psalm is nothing more than a singing sheep. It's the point of view of a sheep. I realized I was meditating in Bisbee, Arizona, of all places. And imagine it probably had to come to me there. That I've thought about this, meditated on it, prayed about it many hundreds of times, and it finally hit me. This is a talking sheep. This is a singing sheep. The point of view of the 23rd Psalm is from the point of view of a barnyard animal. That trusting, lowly nature. It's just like Jesus born in the stable with sheep. It's this humble. And you know, there's a time when you need to be a sheep. You say, oh, I don't want to be a sheep. It sounds kind of, I don't know, sheep-like. But it's really powerful to surrender and to be taken care of. I can be taken care of together. I can be taken care of. I am a lonely sheep. Together, I am a lonely sheep. So get in touch with it. You have a shepherd. You can be taken care of. The Lord is my shepherd. And what? I shall not want. I'll lack nothing. I lack nothing. That's what it means. I lack nothing. The sheep lacks nothing. The sheep is so well taken care of by that shepherd, by that presence of pure being, by that movement, that activity of God that is a verb, unfolding, the verb to be, that beingness itself, that it lacks nothing. And you say, but I'm lacking plenty. I shall not want. You know, there was a rabbi who went to visit a woman who was on her deathbed, and he was praying the 23rd Psalm, and he said, I shall not want. And she opened her eyes and says, but I do want. You know, and there's a time when you do want. But your needs are met. Not all your human needs as you define them, because life is about spiritual growth, not necessarily having everything exactly the way. But your needs are met spiritually. You have all the resources you need, and the unfoldment of this story, of this psalm, is the unfoldment of fulfilling the needs of the soul as you grow as a soul, as a human being. I shall not want. I want for nothing. I lack nothing. And what's the first thing that a sheep needs? Well, it needs rest. And it's the first thing when you're tired and you're reaching out, you want rest. He makes me to lie down, or allows me is another way of putting it. He lets me lie down in tender green shoots of a meadow. That's what it is. Tender young shoots of a meadow. Green shoots. Feel the energy coming up out of the ground, lying down in this beautiful pasture. You know, sheep are mostly cultivated in the world in semi-arid or dry areas because of it's better for the sheep. They have fewer pests and diseases. And Israel most definitely was a desert. So a meadow, a verdant green meadow, was a big deal. So was still water, but a meadow was rare. And so he's saying, you are now in the middle of this desert of your life. You can lie down. You can rest. You can come unto me and get your rest. He leads me beside still waters. Still waters. What are waters? The emotions. Do you ever feel like you're in a stormy sea? Your emotions are tossing you and turning you. Remember when Jesus said, "Peace, be still"? The waters, and he was lying in the boat and they thought he was asleep. He was meditating. They thought he was asleep and they thought they were waking him up, but he was meditating. He was in a deep state and he said, "Peace, be still." I remember when I was hitchhiking in 1972 and I went to visit a guy in Houston, Texas, and I was traveling with an Arctic polar bag, one of those Army surplus. I got it for $5, and it was worth every penny of it. But it was for the Army in Alaska, and it was this mummy bag, and it was a heck of a deal when you're in Houston, Texas, the mummy bag that was for the Arctic service. But it was okay because his house was air conditioned, and they kept it pretty cold. So I zipped it up because it was pretty chilly. Only they had a thermostat that turned off their air conditioner sometime during the night, and I woke up. I didn't know where I was or who I was. I knew I was dying. And I'm calling out, I'm crying out, "Help, help!" And this kid I knew in Youth of Unity, he stands up, he says, "Peace, be still." And I said, "Will you just shut up and help me get out of this bag?" Peace, be still. Peace, be still. Still waters, still waters. The Christ of your being, the I amness of you, the beingness, the presence of your being is saying, "Peace, be still." That's why I love that meditation. When I get to that line, I always visualize, as we do on Tuesday nights in our silent meditation, that the waters that perfectly reflect the sky. And you can see it like glass, like mirror, with the clouds slowly moving across the surface, not just of the sky, but right on the water, reflected. The stillness of your emotions. You see, this 23rd Psalm can be used to meditate. See, I don't know how to meditate. You can do this. The way I do it sometimes when I'm really stuck, and sometimes I use these kinds of meditations when I'm really stuck. I will take each line, I'll say it out loud. He leads me beside still waters. Then I'll say it silently. Maybe I'll whisper it, then I'll say it silently. Then I feel it. I feel it. And I can feel the glassy surface and see the still waters. He restores my soul. He restores my soul. What does that mean? Do you ever feel that you've given your soul away? You ever feel like that you've gone so fast that your soul has to catch up with you? In Africa, sometimes when the early explorers were there, the local porters and guides would go with them, and they would travel as the Westerners would want to march off, and they'd just stop. And they would just stop, and they wouldn't go any further. And the Western explorers said, "Whoa, why are we stopping?" "Because we've traveled too far, too fast, and our souls have to catch up with us." How do you feel like that? Restores my soul. How do you get the restoration of your soul? How do you, in the Genesis story, the 7 days of creation, what happens on the seventh day? Even God rested. And literally, you could translate that, his soul came back to him. His soul was restored. God needs restoration. Well, Jesus is quoted as saying, the sign of the Spirit is movement and rest. movement and rest. Not movement, but I got a moment, so I'm going to play Tetris on my iPhone. Not movement, but I'm going to find something to fill up my so I don't feel this anxiety. No, movement and rest. Come unto me, you burdened, heavy laden, I will give you rest. He restores my soul. And get that restoration every day. You've got to do it. Especially today. As tempting as it may be. That's why I love this time of retreat. I spent hours. It was wonderful. But you may not have hours, but you have minutes. Let your soul be restored. Take the Lord's Prayer of the 23rd Psalm and take some time with it and feel it. You'll feel the trillions of times that it's been recited. You'll feel that energy. He restores my soul. He leads me. This is the line that I always have the hard time with. When I meditate on it, every single time I go, what does this mean? It's like I've forgotten what it means because it's so deep. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. What does that mean? Paths of righteousness are the divinely ordered paths. Remember when Moses led the children of Israel through the desert for 40 years? You know, I got a smartphone finally. I finally got a smartphone. No, some of you know me, it's a shock because I'm totally not that way. But I got a smartphone, and the reason why is because I knew I was going to be driving around, and I did in areas I'd never been, and I was driving through high desert mountains and down backcountry roads, and I needed a GPS, and I found out that I could get a GPS on my smartphone. It just automatically would do it. I just speak where I want to go, and it would show me. And the way it would show me is that the roads would be, pretty direct. The paths of righteousness are not that direct. It's not a GPS system. It's kind of meandering. The 40 years in the wilderness, they went all over the place. Once a rabbi asked one of the boys in his class, his children's class, his teens class, why did it take him 40 years, do you think? And the boy said, because the shortcut is sometimes the longest way. Wow. Sometimes you want to cut to the chase, you want to have a shortcut, but so we have to develop the consciousness. Your life is meandered. Paths of righteousness, you think it was a mistake, but it wasn't. The paths of righteousness are paths that lead you in the ways you need to go. Sometimes the fastest way from going from point A to point B is through point Z, Q, P, and L. And the reason why is because you have to develop what? Soul qualities. If you came into the promised land, your promised land, wherever you want to be in consciousness, immediately you wouldn't have developed the consciousness to hold it. If they just, the travel from downtown Egypt to downtown Israel was really, even walking, not that long, not that far, but it took them 40 years because they had to let the old generation of thought die out. They had to learn many experiences. They had to receive their 10 Commandments, get all these teachings, let go of their false idols. They had a lot of things to go through. When I was in San Antonio for the second week conference, I had been in touch with somebody who was one of my closest friends of all time. It was a girl I met in the Youth of Unity when we were teenagers, and I was so close to her that she and her boyfriend actually moved down to the city that I was in, went to college, a little farm town in California, and I was in touch with all these years, but I hadn't seen her in 32 years. So what did we do all afternoon talking? We talked about the meanderings, the changes in life, all the twists and turns, and she said, I was telling her some of the things, she says, wow, I know you've really gone through some tough times in your life. I don't play it up, but I really have gone through some tough times in my life. And I said, but what's weird when I think about it? I realized that the toughest times happened back many years ago. Some of the things that have happened more recently were actually tougher, but I didn't suffer through them as much because I'd grown and I'd learned. Back then, I was devastated by something that was not as serious as this thing, but because I'd learned and grown and developed, I could handle it. You are growing. You're a growing soul. You are a soul in evolution, and every experience in your life is designed to grow you into that soul awareness and to expand you. And you are not the same person you were 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that's what we got in touch with. How we've grown. How incredible this journey has been. And you don't think you've grown, but you're too close to it. You really have. So, leading me in the paths of righteousness, that means the right alignment, the path of divine order that meanders here and there, but is absolutely right for you for His name's sake. What is the name of God? The Hebrew comes from a Sanskrit word, naman, that means to know. It's that knowingness of God. It is that I amness of God that you know. When you know, and you know that you know, and you experience through your inner practices, you know the name, which is the identity, the knowing of the identity of God, the divinely ordered path flows forth from it. However it's meandering, you know it's the right way. It's time to pick it up, it's time to set it down. Time to turn left, time to turn right. I was talking to Lori Geschray, and she was saying that she had a friend who two friends who went on a trip for a week, and the entire trip was flipping a coin, and whichever way would be go left or right whenever they got to an intersection. Yeah, oh no, once every hour. And she said they had the best trip of their lives. I had a little of that go on my trip too. I was really open. You have to be open. Paths of righteousness, the right paths, for His name's sake, because it flows from the identity, the I amness of God. Then comes the tough one. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Yikes. You know, James Philip Freeman told me once how he wrote the prayer for protection that it's out in the lobby on the wall, and we say it at the end of every service. He said that during World War II, people would write into Unity for prayer for their relatives who were over in Europe on the front lines in great danger. And they would pray a prayer for protection. And the only prayer that they had was the 23rd Psalm. And every so often they get a letter saying, will you please not send me something that talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death? I'm looking for comfort. So as an alternative, he said they're actually asking me to write a better prayer than King David. He said that was quite an effort. And he didn't think he did, but it's pretty good. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Well, you know, sheep have to walk through a valley to get up to the high verdant pastures, to the source of the water. And you have to go through a valley in order to test what you learned on the mountaintop, do you not? We go through valley experiences, it's part of life. But it says the shadow of death. That means it's not real, it's just a shadow. Even though in death, what is death? It's a shadow, it's an illusion, because everyone who's had a near-death experience says that it's wonderful. It's a concept that we have. And I will fear no evil. I've shared before that the chief exorcist of the Catholic Church 20 years ago, in an interview I read, said that there was no such thing as evil. And the interviewer was shocked. They said, were you talking yourself out of a job? And he said, no. If I believed that there was any such thing as evil, I couldn't do what I was doing, because all I do is bring in the light. All evil is a shadow. Lack of light. You bring in light. It's the only thing that's real. Shadows aren't real. They're the lack of something. It has an appearance, but it doesn't have any reality. You can't measure darkness. So it's a shadow of death. And we fear no evil because, why? You are with me. Meaning the light of God is surrounding us and enfolding us. You are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. Oh, without getting too technical, the shepherd's rod was a stick that it would use to whack the critters, the bad animals away. The rod and the staff was what? Well, Bo Peep had exactly the kind of staff that they even had in the time of King David, according to the records. One of those big crooks, you know. Why? Because it's like, come over here, you silly sheep. You're going the wrong way. And they drag the sheep over. That's dirty water. Come over to the clean water. Your rod and your staff comfort me. It's comforting to know that we have both protection and guidance. And sometimes the guidance is in our face. Sometimes, you know, it's like silly sheep, come over here. But we need that sometimes. And it's comforting. And it's no accident that Jesus called the Holy Spirit the Comforter, that which nourishes us from within and helps us to be comforted. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. That sounds kind of arrogant, doesn't it? It's kind of an attitude. It's like, well, I'm going to eat this big banquet, and all the people I don't like are going to look on and be jealous. It almost sounds like that, but it's really not that way. The way it's written in Hebrew, it's in the middle of dealing with adversity. And that's what the adverse was really enemies. I'm nourished, I'm fed. I have a banquet in front of me in the presence of what enemies? The adversity of thought, the adversity of attitude and feeling, the adversity of circumstances, and even people. You know what John F. Kennedy said? They didn't laugh at night, so please laugh. He said, love your enemies, but don't forget their names. But you know, we're all going to have adversity. We're all going to have these situations in life. But we will be fed and nourished. No matter how tough the experience, you will have a banquet in front of you if you're open to it. Even in the midst of the adversity, it's unconditional. No matter what the adverse circumstance or person or attitude or internal state is, we will be nourished. We will be fed. You will prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. What is this? Well, when Queen Elizabeth II was crowned in her coronation in 1952, they anointed her head with oil. Now, unlike in David's time, where they actually would have taken a dollop of perfumed grease and put it on his head, and all their hair was greasy in those days. But it was as a blessing, a sanctification, and honoring. Holy oil is a part of almost every world religious system. It's just a symbol of what? Of an upliftment, of a sanctification, of a lifting up to a new level of consciousness. You'll anoint my head with oil, and then my cup overflows. My cup of wine. The connotation, according to rabbinical sources, is you could retranslate that, you will get me most righteously drunk. My cup overflows. But spiritus, which was used also for the alcohol and the wine, spiritus is that divine intoxication, that divine effervescence, the fountain that's overflowing. You know, when I was down in Phoenix, Jane Elizabeth Hart, who was here a couple weeks ago, also gave a talk, and her talk would have set your hair on fire. It's amazing. And at the end of it, I said, that was amazing. She said, do you know what I felt like? I felt like I was a fountain, and people would show up with whatever size cup they have, and whatever size cup they had, they could drink that much. And that's the way it was. She was a fountain, and if you had a little tiny cup, a thimble, that's all you're going to get. If you got a big barrel, big bowl, that's how much you're going to get. My cup overflows. And then surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Now this is interesting. The rabbinical sources say that goodness and mercy weren't just qualities. They were angels. Some rabbinical sources said it's the angel of goodness or well-being. The angel of, you know, that good heart, goodness, and mercy, which was grace, that kind of help that comes when you least expect it. And it says that these angels of goodness and mercy follow you. Now, most of the time, we're trying to find the answer, the angel of goodness and mercy. We're trying to chase it, but actually, the word follow meant literally chase. So you are being chased down and pursued and even hunted down by the angels of goodness and mercy. Not enemies, but angels of goodness and mercy. I welcome the angels of goodness and mercy. Together, I welcome the angels of goodness and mercy. And so rather than you having to pursue and chase after the goodness and mercy, when you open up to this energy that's contained within this prayer, within this psalm, you will be pursued by that goodness and mercy all the days of your life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You know, they believed that the house of the Lord was the temple in Jerusalem with the Holy of Holies and the Ark of the Covenant that had such an energy, and that's where God dwelled. They really believed that until the Romans destroyed it all and took it all away. Then what are they going to believe? And the rabbis got together in a little town called Jamnia and decided the temple of the living God is still alive. But guess where it is? Right here. Here's the Holy of Holies. You can't take it away from us. It's not in a building. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, because that's who and what we are. So, let's pray it, and let's see where we go with it, okay? Hope we're not going to go too far over time, but I'm just going to say it and just kind of take it within you and see what energy comes up in you and what you can sense. Take a deep breath, let it out. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So it is. Let's take a deep breath and let it out, and remember that probably the shepherd's song has been recited, sung, prayed 1 trillion times more over a period of 3,000 years. There's a power here. And this energy in this life is built up over all that time because yearning souls have grabbed hold of this thought and offered themselves as vehicles for this higher idea and moved themselves into an awareness that lifted them up above the mundane problems of everyday living into the level where they're taken care of, where they feel as a sheep with a shepherd, they're nurtured and supported and guided and blessed. And the very cultivated thought of 1 trillion prayers, 1 trillion times of singing this song has built an energy that we tap into now. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This has generated a strength and energy in a life which we can tap into now. We can take this on as real spiritual food. we can absorb into our beingness the energized thought of 3 millennia of prayers and songs and thoughts. Catch a glimpse of the energy that you can use to move you, to push you forward, to lift you up. Feel the power that has been unleashed by this prayer. Lift your heart in a silent song, for that is the word. Song means song. And whether you know this song or not by heart, take the thought that you lack nothing because your higher power takes care of you and guides you. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. I get my rest in green pastures, verdant meadows, the silence, the stillness of quiet waters. I am renewed and restored, the deepest level of my soul. I am led in divine order that flows from the I amness, the presence of the pure being within me. No matter how hard a time I've gone through, there is no shadow that can overcome me or that I fear, because this I am presence is within me, with me, flowing through me, guiding me through. Guiding and protecting me, comforting me, feeding me spiritually, even in the face of adversity. Spiritually anointing and lifting me up. I am an overflowing fountain of this Spirit. Angels of wholeness and grace, loving kindness, pursue me. I do not need to seek them out. All of my life, and I am in the dwelling place of God beyond time, the timelessness